Hey there, I'm back, and now we're going to talk about kind of part of the first lesson as well, but it's important for us to talk about the actual thing that you're going to do for the entire semester and a creative thinking approach called design thinking. So what is design thinking? Now, design thinking is not like, oh no, I'm gonna do art. No, it's nothing to do with that. No, it's not art at all. It's a philosophy. Now, it's really about trying to understand, taking ideas and tools for solving problem. It's kind of like that. Okay, ideas, tools, solving problem, and it's just an approach. It's not a formula or anything. So design thinking is an approach. Okay, so I'm going to get right into it. Like, again, this is a recorded video, so I hope you guys spend time watching it, and do subscribe to this channel if you want to follow future posts and updates. Now let's go straight into it. Okay, what is design thinking? Now, design thinking is, it's like I said, it's an approach. Is how you can redefine your understanding of problem solving. Is using a way that is very popularly used by designers in the past, but the difference between all the different other methods like lateral thinking and all the different other things you can find in other books is that design thinking is focused on the human being. Okay, it's focused on the human being. It's focused on human. It's human-centered design. So human-centered or user-centric thinking is the core of design thinking. Your design, it means that you're solving problem for someone or for that target market, for the society, the people that is categorized under that category. Sometimes you may think about you may think you're designing for, or you're solving a problem for the one person, but it's actually a representation of that user group. Yeah. For example, if it's for a kid, and maybe you will have to think about what kids like, etc. So it's something like that. Okay, if it's for elderly folk, then it's for elderly folk. So it's really about human-centered, all centered on persons. Okay, so there are 5 phases to design thinking. That's what you need to do. Every of your assignments and projects are going to incorporate all 5 phases, right? Number 1, under the discovery mode, there's the 5. You don't have to worry about the discovery, ideation, presentation, interpretation, experimentation. Those words, don't worry about those words. Most important thing, just remember the 5 sections here. Okay, 1 is empathize, number 2 define, number 3 ideate, number 4 prototype, and number 5 test or present. Okay, now let's go. We'll talk about the 5 phases. We're going to revise the 5 phases after every explanation. Now we have sample videos that we can show, but I'm not going to show you this video. I'm going to show you a video. Let's say I'm just going to show one video here. Let's see. Yeah, watch a video here. Oops.
What's the fastest growing threat to Americans' health? Cancer, heart attacks, diabetes? The answer is actually none of these. It's Alzheimer's disease. Every 67 seconds, someone in the United States is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. As the number of Alzheimer's patients triples by the year 2050, caring for them, as well as the rest of the aging population, will become an overwhelming societal challenge. My family has experienced firsthand the struggles of caring for an Alzheimer's patient. Growing up in a family with 3 generations, I've always been very close to my grandfather. When I was 4 years old, my grandfather and I were walking in a park in Japan when he suddenly got lost. It was one of the scariest moments I've ever experienced in my life, and it was also the first incident that informed us that my grandfather had Alzheimer's disease. Over the past 12 years, his condition got worse and worse, and his wandering in particular caused my family a lot of stress. My aunt, his primary caregiver, really struggled to stay awake at night to keep an eye on him, and even then often failed to catch him leaving the bed. I became really concerned about my aunt's well-being as well as my grandfather's safety. I searched extensively for a solution that could help my family's problems, but couldn't find one. Then, one night, about 2 years ago, I was looking after my grandfather and I saw him stepping out of the bed. The moment his foot landed on the floor, I thought, why don't I put a pressure sensor on the heel of his foot? Once he stepped onto the floor and out of the bed, the pressure sensor would detect an increase in pressure caused by body weight and then wirelessly send an audible alert to the caregiver's smartphone. That way, my aunt could sleep much better at night without having to worry about my grandfather's wandering. So now I'd like to perform a demonstration of the sock. Could I please have my sock model on stage? Great. So, once the patient steps onto the floor, an alert is sent to the caregiver's smartphone. Great. Thank you. Thank you, sock model. So this is a drawing of my preliminary design. My desire to create a sensor-based technology perhaps stemmed from my lifelong love for sensors and technology. When I was 6 years old, an elderly family friend fell down in the bathroom and suffered severe injuries. I became concerned about my own grandparents and decided to invent a smart bathroom system. Motion sensors would be installed inside the tiles of bathroom floors to detect the falls of elderly patients whenever they fell down in the bathroom. Since I was only 6 years old at the time and I hadn't graduated from kindergarten yet, I didn't have the necessary resources and tools to translate my idea into a reality. But nonetheless, my research experience really implanted in me a firm desire to use sensors to help the elderly people. I really believed that sensors could improve the quality of life of the elderly. When I laid out my plan, I realized that I faced 3 main challenges. First, creating a sensor. Second, designing a circuit. And third, coding a smartphone app. This made me realize that my project was actually much harder to realize than I initially had thought it to be. First, I had to create a wearable sensor that was thin and flexible enough to be worn comfortably on the bottom of the patient's foot. After extensive research and testing of different materials, like rubber, which I realized was too thick to be worn snugly on the bottom of the foot, I decided to print a film sensor with electrically conductive, pressure-sensitive ink particles. Once pressure is applied, the connectivity between the particles increases. Therefore, I could design a circuit that would measure pressure by measuring electrical resistance. Next, I had to design a wearable wireless circuit. But wireless signal transmission consumes lots of power and requires heavy, bulky batteries. Thankfully, I was able to find out about the Bluetooth Low Energy technology, which consumes very little power and can be driven by a coin-sized battery. This prevented the system from dying in the middle of the night. Lastly, I had to code a smartphone app that would essentially transform the caregiver's smartphone into a remote monitor. For this, I had to expand upon my knowledge of coding with Java and Xcode, and I also had to learn about how to code for Bluetooth Low Energy devices by watching YouTube tutorials and reading various textbooks. Integrating these components, I was able to successfully create 2 prototypes, one in which the sensor is embedded inside a sock, and another that's a reattachable sensor assembly that can be adhered anywhere that makes contact with the bottom of the patient's foot. I've tested the device on my grandfather for about a year now, and it's had a 100% success rate in detecting the over 900 known cases of his wandering. Last summer, I was able to beta test my device at several residential care facilities in California, and I'm currently incorporating the feedback to further improve the device into a marketable product. Testing the device on a number of patients made me realize that I need to invent solutions for people who didn't want to wear socks to sleep at night. So sensor data collected on a vast number of patients can be useful for improving patient care and also leading to a cure for the disease, possibly. For example, I'm currently examining correlations between the frequency of a patient's nightly wandering and his or her daily activities and diet. But one thing I'll never forget is when my device first caught my grandfather's wandering out of bed at night. At that moment, I was really struck by the power of technology to change lives for the better. People living happily and healthily. That's the world that I imagine. Thank you very much.
So that's that video is very enlightening, isn't it? So that video, what the young man, Kenneth Shinozuka. Okay, he actually demonstrated this years ago, and he actually worked out the systems that would be able to improve the quality of life for the elderly. So the point is this: in order to do that, he had to really understand the needs of the elderly, the needs of someone who is at that age and suffering and at risk with Alzheimer's and degenerative brain problems or disease. So it requires something called empathize. It means you getting to know the user and understanding the needs and wants and objectives. Now, it's really about you putting yourself in the shoe of the user. Again, this is really human-centered. So you need to first understand the human needs, and you need to understand or gather, I would say, record these understandings in the form of data or information. That's where the recording part becomes very important. So why do you need to empathize? But you have to remember, why is because it's not really your own problem to solve. It definitely belongs to a group of people. Sometimes you're tempted to ask questions that you think that has much more closer hint to a solution. You got to avoid that. You got to suspend any kind of judgment. The most important part at this stage is to fully focus on the user. What is the user thinking? What is the user feeling? What is the user's wants, emotional state, what they don't like, and so on and so forth. What do you often say? And what do they often say? What do they often do? So sometimes it requires, in order to get such data, you require to interview, talk to the user, interact with the user, have conversations and listen to their stories, really talking to them, forging a relationship with them. And sometimes you need to observe. Sometimes as you if it's really about motion, movements, or whatever, you might use a recording device to record actions, record things like that. So that is all data. These are the data that's crucial. You need to record that information. So how do you do that? Observation, like I said, observation, engagement, watch, listen. Being a good listener is very important. Sometimes you may want to ask them to demonstrate how to complete that specific task, or ask them to vocalize it, use the environment. But most commonly done is engagement. Usually, most commonly done, the best approach is interviews, talking to them and things like that. So you got to pay attention to a lot of details too. Pay attention to body language and expression, emotions. Sometimes they might cry, and that's important to note as well. Why are they crying? What are they feeling at that point when they're talking about the problem, and so on and so forth. So also, what makes them the most happiest, and so on. What is easiest for them to do or say or feel. What kind of experience they're having, so that's all very important. There's this other video as well that you can watch. This is the exact image of the video. Let me just play it.
In India, we have these huge families. I bet a lot of y'all must have heard about it. which means that there are a lot of family events. So as a child, my parents used to drag me to these family events. But the one thing that I always looked forward to was playing around with my cousins. And there was always this one uncle who used to be there, always ready, jumping around with us, having games for us, making us kids have the time of our lives. This man was extremely successful. He was confident and powerful. But then I saw this hale and hearty person deteriorate in health. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Parkinson's is a disease that causes degeneration of the nervous system, which means that this person who used to be independent suddenly finds tasks like drinking coffee because of tremors much more difficult. My uncle started using a walker to walk, and to take a turn, he literally had to take one step at a time like this, and it took forever. So this person, who used to be the center of attention in every family gathering, was suddenly hiding behind people. He was hiding from the pitiful look in people's eyes. And he's not the only one in the world. Every year, 60,000 people are newly diagnosed with Parkinson's. And this number is only rising. As designers, we dream that our designs solve these multifaceted problems, one solution that solves it all. But it need not always be like that. You can also target simple problems and create small solutions for them and eventually make a big impact. So my aim here was to not cure Parkinson's, but to make their everyday tasks much more simpler and then make an impact. Well, the first thing I targeted was tremors, right? My uncle told me that he had stopped drinking coffee or tea in public just out of embarrassment. So, well, I designed the no-spill cup. It works just purely on its form. The curve on top deflects the liquid back inside every time they have tremors. And this keeps the liquid inside compared to a normal cup. But the key here is that it is not tagged as a Parkinson's patient product. It looks like a cup that could be used by you, me, any clumsy person. And that makes it much more comforting for them to use, to blend in. So well, one problem solved, many more to go. All this while, I was interviewing him, questioning him. And then I realized that I was getting very superficial information, or just answers to my questions. But I really needed to dig deeper to get a new perspective. So I thought, well, let's observe him in his daily tasks, while he's eating, while he's watching TV. And then, when I was actually observing him walking to his dining table, it struck me, this man who finds it so difficult to walk on flat land, how does he climb a staircase? Because in India, we do not have a fancy rail that takes you up a staircase like in the developed countries. One actually has to climb the stairs. So he told me, well, let me show you how I do it. Let's take a look at what I saw. So he took really long to reach this position. And then all this while I'm thinking, oh my God, is he really going to do it? Is he really going to do it without his walker? And then, and the turns, he took them so easily. So shocked? Well, I was too. So this person who could not walk on flat land was suddenly a pro at climbing stairs. On researching this, I realized that it's because it's a continuous motion. There's this other man who also suffers from the same symptoms and uses a walker, but the moment he's put on a cycle, all his symptoms vanish because it is a continuous motion. So the key for me was to translate this feeling of walking on a staircase back to flat land. And a lot of ideas were tested and tried on him, but the one that finally worked was this one. Let's take a look. He walked faster, right? I call this the staircase illusion. And actually, when the staircase illusion abruptly ended, he froze. And this is called freezing of gate. So it happens a lot. So why not have a continuous staircase illusion flowing through all their rooms, making them feel much more confident? You know, technology is not always it. What we need are human-centered solutions. I could have easily made it into a projection or a Google Glass or something like that, but I stuck to simple print on the floor. This print could be taken into hostels, hospitals, well, hotels for that matter, to make them feel much more welcomed. What I wish to do is to make every Parkinson's patient feel like my uncle felt that day. He told me that I made him feel like his old self again. Smart in today's world has become synonymous to high tech, and the world is only getting smarter and smarter day by day. But why can't smart be something that's simple and yet effective? All we need is a little bit of empathy and some curiosity to go out there, observe. But let's not stop at that. Let's find these complex problems. Don't be scared of them. Break them, boil them down into much smaller problems, and then find simple solutions for them. Test these solutions, well, fail if needed, but with newer insights to make it better. Imagine what we all could do if we all came up with simple solutions. What would the world be like if we combined all our simple solutions? Let's make a smarter world, but with simplicity. Thank you.
Hi.
So that was the YouTube video, and that was impressive. And what she actually spoke about really resonated what was just discussed just now. You really got to know the user. It's very much user-centered. And if you notice that how she actually found out about his problem was through extensive observation, lots of understanding of the user, trying to put herself in his shoes, and also lots of medical research. But this is the context of something that's more in a medical field. So you could understand that this is the process, this is the approach for empathy. So there is a technique that is called the empathy map. Okay, now let me just quickly show you how to do an empathy map. How do you actually get started to actually find out that this map system actually helps you categorize how it can be done, which parts, or how do you put them all together. It's kind of like a schematic. Okay, so an empathy map kind of looks like this, right? Now let me just do this from scratch. Okay, now I'm just going to draw this empathy map like this. Let me just open a new page, choose a darker color so you could. Okay, now you start off, okay, by first drawing a little face. That's more like a pear. Now let's just draw a little face. Okay, whichever. Okay, yeah, so now let's just say if this is you. Okay, now let's put some dot, make it into more like a chart like thing. Now you can do it any way you like. I'm just sketching. You can also do similar sketches on your own. Let's not put any borders here, kind of restrictive, but let's put it down here. Let's say, okay, now what are the categories of things that you can ask, or categories of interviews or observations that you can actually engage in with the user. Now let's say if the user is you. For your upcoming assignment, your user is definitely all about you. Now first you got to find out what is the person thinking? How do the person thinks? What is the person's outlook on life? What do they think about this matter, this subject? If it's, depends on the topic, of the project, right? So what is that person? Remember, you're solving a problem for a person, yeah? Then what do this person often hear? What do they talk about? What do they hear? Do they like to listen to music? What do they listen to often? What kind of music you like? What do you listen when you walk out the door every day, and what do you like to listen to, what you don't like to listen to, and things like that. You can also talk about what do you often see and observe. What do they often see and observe? What do they like to see and observe? And a little bit of story on that. So it does not necessarily mean that there's no right and wrong in this situation. It's just about you collecting information. But remember, you're not suggesting what they're supposed to see or what they haven't seen. You're not suggesting anything. You just want to hear them talk about it from their own point of view. So, of course, at the first part here, you can write their names here. Say, let's say this person's name is John or Cindy. Okay, here, what is their position? I'm a student, or a lecturer, or engineer, and so on and so forth. So you could just put some information here, and what do they, and then continuing from here, what does she or he like to say and talk about? So what do you like to talk about? Okay. Oops. What do you like to talk about, and what do you like to read about, discuss, see, observation, what do you like to observe, what do you like to focus on, and the various things. What do you, if the person is sight impaired, what sensory sight do they use? Maybe they like to touch and see, or hear to see, and so on and so forth. So you could think also about like here, music, talks, like a podcast, radio, this conversation, and the list will go on and on. So you got to put in more information. But of course, this map just helps you categorize what kind of data or information that you're going to get from them. What do this person don't like? And this could be a whole range of list. And does this person feel? What do this person feel when they go to work, when they drive, when they take part in a specific event, or take part in sports, or things like that? What does this person actually feels? So it's important for them, for you to do a little bit more deep diving into this person's maybe emotion. You're not trying to solve anything on the emotion here. You're just trying to get information. Yeah. So what about what do they like to do as a hobby? So do they have something they like to do often? Do they like to do something secretly, but you don't have to know the secret? You like to, and so on and so forth. So the list will go on. So feel, emotional things that they love to feel. For example, they like watching, they like to feel happy watching movies or listening to music and things like that. So very focused on emotion here. What about wants and needs? Wants or needs. So what this person wants and needs. what do they love to have, what they love to own, you know. Maybe not exactly own, maybe they like to give. Do they like to give people instead, or own things, or what is this person? So everything here is kind of interrelated, but yeah, but the most important thing is categorizing some key aspects of the person's personality. Yeah, so that's what empathy is. Empathy is really about trying to understand the person, putting yourself in their shoe. Yeah, to really really, I would say, really try to list down the possibilities of what the main needs are. Okay, so that is really, this is basically how an empathy map is roughly like. Okay, there's no right and wrong. You can create an empathy map however you like. You can make it more illustrative, you can make it more like, say, mind map like. You all are familiar with mind maps, right? You can do mind map style. Let's say you could do more mind map style, branching out, okay, and so on and so forth. You can do it this way. You can create more illustrative version. Some of you love sketching, like to create comics or something like that, so you know, and so on and so forth. So you could do it this way. You could do it diagram style, you know, you can do it chart style, but most important thing is have a huge amount of data concerning empathy. And empathy is focused on the user, and the user is a human-centered understanding about everything around the user. Yeah, so there's no limit to this, to what how the amount of information that you can actually obtain from this. But the most important thing is try to put a little bit order to chaos. Categorize. So categorize, for example, under C, usually in face-to-face or in an actual physical space, if you're in an actual classroom or X space, chances are I would probably ask you to use lots of post-it notes to categorize each one of these. Yeah, but it doesn't matter now. You can do it digitally like this, or you could actually use any kind of platform to digitally illustrate the information, or list down, write them down, and note them down easily. So that's the thing. Okay, you get started with empathy, and empathy is the first phase of the entire assignment or projects. Okay, all your assignment projects will have to focus on the 5 phases of the design thinking. Now watch the next video concerning define. That's the second stage. All right, so I'm going to, each one of these phases going to be short videos, so hopefully you can follow them, but there's always room for discussion and Q&A. Yeah, so look forward to discussing this with you further. Take care till the next video.